Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. The season has now fully started with the first televised crosses of the season being done. Today we are here to discuss the first exact cross of the season in Kruibeke, and we'll give some attention to the USCX series in Ranok and the KleebergCross in Mechelen as well. With me here to do that is Issam. Issam, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We got some questions after our pre-season podcast about where Twan was. Well, Twan is having a bit of time off. He'll be back in November. So, I guess you'll just need to wait a bit. And for now, you have to settle for me and Issam for today's exact cross in Kruibeke. After a long, warm, hot summer. Many talks about the lack of rain. Finally, the rain is here. And, well, perfect timing if you ask me, because cross is here as well. In Kruibeke, it was a true cross conditions for the men's race. Rain absolutely chucking it down before and during the race. Mud, but none of that seemed to calm down the temper of Jens Adams, who had an absolute furious start, but then was overtaken by Danny van Lierop, who got super excited and led for, I think, a third of a lap before dropping way back. Then Jens Adams kept pressing on with an aggressive strategy in the first lap to try and thin out the peloton. Well, that kind of worked. We went into a situation with 5 leaders: Jens Adams, Jentel Beckaert, Iserbyt, Laurens Sweeck and Michael Venthourenhout. Unfortunately for Adams, he slowly was losing contact with that group when Michael Venthourenhout was putting on the pressure. He got dropped. Soon after, Jentel Beckaert got dropped as well, but Beckaert got replaced in that leading group by his teammate and European champion Lars van der Haar. With these 4 leaders, the first 20 minutes of the race was back and forth. We saw pressure from Sweeck, then an attack from Iserbyt on the off-camber, but nobody really managed to get away. But that changed just before the halfway point of the race, when Michael Venthourenhout managed to pull out a small gap in one of the corners over Sweeck, then managed to stretch it a bit further on the off-camber, gain a couple of seconds again on the barriers, and slowly but surely he was distancing the rest. And those 5 seconds became 30 seconds eventually, and he comfortably went on to win the first cross of the season in Belgium. Second place eventually behind him went to his teammate Iserbyt, who managed to drop the rest in the final few laps. The third place was still a close battle between Sweeck and Van der Haar, but eventually Sweeck took that third place just ahead of the European champion Lars van der Haar. Quite an entertaining race if you ask me, especially the first half. Good to see the mud back, good to see the riders back. What is your key takeaway of this race, Issam?
I think at the end, the main thing that I saw in this race was that we had a very good Venthourenhout. I think that Iserbyt was also very, very good, very good. And Sweeck, in my opinion, also made a step in the right direction, in my opinion. I think that we can conclude that the 4 guys that we kind of expected in the front, in my opinion, or at least before I saw the start list, those were the strongest guys in a way. And yeah, eventually those were the ones that we saw when eventually they broke away. And I think that everybody is taking their positives. I think that Venthourenhout definitely can be happy with his performance today. Was super strong in my opinion. Iserbyt played a very, very good teammate in a way and sat behind Sweeck for a long time, and then decided that he could take that second place. And Sweeck was also very good, so I think that those 3 can be very happy. Van der Haar, had a difficult week with a newborn child, and that obviously doesn't really help in terms of sleep and preparation. And we said that already in the preview, and that was kind of visible today. But still, able to keep Sweeck very close by and get that 4th place. So I think those are a bit the key moments or the key points in a way of this race that I took from it. I don't know how you look into that in a way.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. The expected names at the front, in absence of Toon Aerts, these were also the names that were at the front of the races last year. So no big surprises there. I was maybe a bit surprised that it was Michael Venthourenhout already taking the win early on in the season. But on the other hand, today was a very good course for him. He always excels in the mud, and I think today that was what made the difference for him. I don't know how you saw that, but in my opinion, the reason that Venthourenhout was able to stretch this gap was not necessarily because he was much stronger than Laurens Sweeck, but because he was more comfortable. You could see that through the corners, he always was able to carry just that 1-2 kilometers extra of speed through it. He was able to jump the barriers when Sweeck was walking them. That was about 3-4 seconds every lap that Venthourenhout could win there. So I think that in these conditions, it just suits Venthourenhout better, and that is eventually where he was able to make the difference over Sweeck. But in terms of performance, well, I think it's close. Laurens Sweeck made a very good impression to me. Iserbyt a bit harder to judge because he was sitting in the wheel of Sweeck as a good teammate for almost the entire race.
Yeah, in a way, true. I think that definitely is a good assessment of what happened in a way. I mean, that, Sweeck, in a way, that gap kind of came out of, I wouldn't say nowhere, but Venthourenhout just taking a couple of corners a little bit better, putting them under pressure, and then the pace went a little bit up and Sweeck wasn't really able to follow. There was a moment in the race that you kind of saw that he was coming a bit closer, and I was like, he might actually be able to bridge it back, but then in the end, like you say, not jumping the barriers, was a bit uncomfortable on the bike in a way. You could see it with his lines. Not his parkour, especially like how it was today with the weather and the rain, a bit muddy. And then, it's a bit difficult to then close those gaps and close the gains of Venthourenhout in a way. And then you have to race for in the end third, because Iserbyt was the one sitting behind him, and he was kind of racing Van der Haar more than Iserbyt, because I think he kind of knew already when Iserbyt was in his wheel that it was going to be tough, and Iserbyt played a good race, just stayed in the wheels and did what he had to do as a teammate.
But do you really think that gap was unexpected? Because I kind of saw it coming already, because Venthourenhout was pulling in the early phases of the race, wasn't able to break away despite having a gap at some point. Then after that we saw a blistering attack by Iserbyt on the off-camber, opening a couple of seconds immediately. That got closed. In my opinion, this was a clear tactic played by the Pauwels Sauze team. Okay, Venthourenhout, you go first. If that doesn't work, Iserbyt, you launch. That doesn't work, Venthourenhout, you launch, etc., etc.
Yeah, there was definitely kind of a plan. I mean, it was not a plan of that took a lot of thinking, but they kind of knew what they were going to do. It was quite clear that Venthourenhout tried it in the beginning, and then indeed Iserbyt took over to also make sure that group was not going to grow, because it had the danger, especially in the beginning, to be a very big group, and then you have the danger of becoming too far at the back, and when the crucial attack is happening, you're not in the right place at the right moment. So it was very clear that they had a good plan in mind, and eventually it worked out for them. And so in a way expected, also in a way not really, but it was in the end, it is what happened. And I think that we can definitely say that the two guys from Pauwels Sauze are in very good shape, and in that this is going to be a good season for them, I believe.
Yeah, Iserbyt also looked alright. Of course, we had a couple of question marks after a rough summer for him, but I think he is fine. However, I do expect a bit closer racing than the previous years, and that's mainly down to Laurens Sweeck now not being on the Pauwels Sauze team. It's very good for the sport that he now has 100% opportunities to race for himself. He races for the Krelan Friestads team now. And Issam, we both attended the team presentation of them on Friday. There we heard it, I think, 10 times at least, that they said that Laurens Sweeck could now finally race free after having multiple incidents and being unhappy about the team strategy for Pauwels Sauze last year. I think that today we could already kind of see that wasn't only just talk to kind of pat themselves on the back that they were finally going to free Laurens Sweeck, but that there's actually truth to it, because Laurens Sweeck looked kind of stronger than I have seen him on the bike, at least this early in the season, in I think quite a while. I think he looked very good, just not the course for him, but strong look, good power, looked to be in good form, still getting used to the new bike a bit. He said he wasn't feeling the strongest, had a hard week of training before as well, but I think that Sweeck is definitely going to be a contender in the bit faster races early on in the season.
That's definitely possible. I mean, it's super early in the season. I mean, it's only September, so most of these guys are not going to be in their best condition, and there will definitely be some sort of improvement coming up in the next following weeks. And when you have those faster races, which probably will be coming up, I don't think it will be raining for weeks to come, then it's definitely going to help Sweeck out in a bit, and also in general, I think when his races will come up a little, like Kokzijde, for example, I think that will then help him a little bit with the sand. being in good shape, having a good build-up, a new team. The motivation definitely will be there, I guess, because this definitely motivates you for the next following races. If you can start the season well, that's super important, because you can just take that feeling with you in the next following weeks, and that can definitely help, and just makes it a little bit easier, your season in general.
And how much do you think that new team will benefit him? What was your conclusion from that team presentation and just the racing in general?
I mean, from what I got out of that team presentation and the way they were talking about it, they have a vision, a future vision in a way. They wanna make sure that team is going to be something that's going to stay for a while. They have a long-term plan in a way. They were talking a lot about this type of pyramid that they had in the team, a structure that goes from the top all the way down to the youth categories, and you could kind of see that in the team itself. I mean, today it wasn't really visible. Sweeck was in a way for the men's category the sole rider, but that's because of the reasons of the others not being there. But I definitely think that this team is having a new sort of elan. It looks very fresh, and it has a plan. They have a great rider in the name of Sweeck, in my opinion, and somebody that's definitely still motivated. I mean, he's not even 30 yet; he's 29. So definitely, somebody that wants to lead a team, and you can definitely build on him. And then with the under 23s that they have, it's definitely something that will work out. But I don't know how you think about that. But for me personally, I think that for the elites, they might come a little bit short, because like for a race as today, you wouldn't mind having a teammate, especially if you will end up in a faster race. I mean, today was maybe a bit too muddy, but when you go to a faster race, you wouldn't mind a teammate. And I don't know if they actually will be able to deliver such.
I don't think so, but I think Bauer Saus at the moment with Iserbyt and Venthourenhout is the only team in a position where they will consistently have a second rider up there. Ico Krelan, they have a great team. The pyramid structure you mentioned, I 100% agree that they maybe have the best and well-talented team that there is. They have Sweeck at the top, maybe not the best rider, but definitely one of the best, especially in absence of the road riders who also do cross. Then below, Viseur and Verstringen, great talents. Mees Hendricks, first year elite, also going to be up there occasionally. So it might not be ideal at the top yet, but look at the other teams. The only other big team is Baloise Trek. They only have Van der Haar. They will need Haar to show up, and I doubt Haar will do that every week. I think he will be there occasionally, but the same goes for Hendricks. They will occasionally be there. So I think there's definitely more to come from Sweeck, even if he is alone. And the same goes for Van der Haar. Today he rode with a great fighting spirit, battling for that win in the beginning of the race, then eventually for the podium, and just missing out. But it's also Van der Haar always struggles at the first cross of the season. He is not great, or at least in recent years, in that first cross. Today not really a course for him either. And don't forget, he became a dad this week, and so nice said it during the race as well. Not that many hours of sleep if you just become a dad, so Van der Haar can be satisfied with that 4th place. More to come in the rest of the cross season from both Sweeck and Van der Haar. Going to be entertaining. Let's run down the entire top 10 then. We of course had that win for Mike Venthourenhout ahead of Eli Iserbyt and Laurens Sweeck. That 4th place for Lars van der Haar, the European champion, was already discussed. In the rest of the top 10 we find Tom Meeuwse ahead of Niels van der Putten, Jens Adams, Toon van der Bos, Ryan Kamp and Lander Looks. My opinion here is not that many big surprises, kind of the usual suspects that were fighting for these places, not many youngsters that were able to get involved. Out of these riders, which performance struck you the most?
To be honest, Tom Meeuwse, in my opinion. I mean, in the first lap, I guess he had some problems. I didn't really see him. I saw him only going up the hill where the others were trying to run up it. He was going on his bike, but he was not really in the top 10 at that point. And I mean, the broadcast was not really focused too much on that fight behind the 4 in front in a way. So it was quite tough to see what was going on behind them. But out of nowhere, we saw Meeuwse in a way, not out of nowhere, but, he kind of was in that position at a certain point. And I think that that he was definitely somebody that I didn't really took in consideration for a top 5. So I think that that definitely is for me the performance that stood out the most for me then.
Yeah, I think he had some issues in the early phases of the race. I think there was a mechanical or a crash. I'm not too sure exactly anymore, but definitely a good performance by him, continuing a upward trend somewhat that's been hit by him the last couple of years, where he's really kind of reinvented himself in a way. Of course, it's not the level that we are used to from a younger Tom Meeuwse. We'll never forget that he won that first World Cup from him in Kalmthout in the snow. I think that was, or well, whatever. It was definitely great from him, and those type of performances, we haven't seen them lately. I don't think we'll ever see them again. He is already getting kind of old, but definitely a decent result. And I mean, for the rest of the riders there, Toon van der Bos in 8th. He's exactly where I expected him to be. No real improvement over the winter. Jens Adams in 7th, also a usual suspect in the top 10. Maybe a too aggressive start, or I'm pretty sure it was a too aggressive start and that he could have ended 5th if it wasn't for that. But on the other hand, he gave Hollebeek Hoeve a bit of TV time, and I'm sure that will also be appreciated by his sponsors. Lander Looks in 10th, all same story, expected. Van der Putten in 6th, maybe a tad disappointing for me. I'd hoped he'd be able to make another step, but after last week's performances in Germany, I was already tempering my expectations. And then the final name here in the top 10, Ryan Kamp in 9th. He also had a bit of issues in the beginning of the race, didn't he, Issam?
Oh yeah, he had that crash, obviously, that didn't really help. And yeah, I think the issues, with this type of races in the beginning of a season, when something like that happened, you kind of lean towards, there are still a couple of races to go, it's only September, still many races to go, and it's not really a classification that you're fighting for. These are one-off races in a way, so you try to make the best out of it, and I think that's what he tried to do. I don't think he had too much harm of that crash, but obviously it was not an easy crash in my opinion, and yeah, I couldn't really follow it from there on, because he had the crash and he had to come from quite far back, and then eventually I guess he kind of rolled in that P9, just I guess tried to finish it, and that was basically what he did. And bit of a shame, because I really wanted to see what he was able to do in that group in front of him. I definitely think that he would have been able to fight for 5th place. I think that the ones in front were probably a bit too fast for him. But the top 5 was, in my opinion, possible. I don't know how you think about the situation of Kamp and how that crash went, because I saw the crash, but I don't really know why he actually had that crash there.
It was a bit hard to see on that angle, but it maybe looked like he tipped the wheel of the rider in front of him, but it could also have just been a slip. I'm not too sure on that either, and I do agree with you. He was eventually 45 seconds off that group for 5th place. I do think he could have been in there. Not much more than a 5th place possible, but still, it's better than where he is now. But I haven't said this yet, but it's the first cross of the season. Let's calm down a bit. It's a very hard cross to start your season. There was no real big name that completely flopped today, in my opinion, but it's the first cross of the season. As said, riders are coming into it and going from road, or maybe a bit of the training that they did on the cross bike on the hard surface in the forest, to this, a slow cross with many power sections, a bit of running, quite some dismounting, slippery. It's a huge switch. So let's not think that this is super representative for what's to come. We don't know what the weather will do the next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll be gone for a season full of mud. Then the fast riders, or the riders for the fast courses, won't have anything to do this cross season. But I'm sure there will be some opportunities for them to show themselves. So let's temper the expectations a bit. And for instance, a Niels van der Putten, yes, maybe not the best start, but also not the worst. There's definitely a way forward for him, and I mean the same goes for Ryan Kamp. That crash can also just be a bit of rustiness, because for Iserbyt, for instance, the teammate of Kamp, I could spot a bit of rustiness in the corners as well. So that's always part of the beginning of the season, but there's more to come, and I'm really looking forward to that. I would like to still highlight 2 performances outside of the top 10. First one is of Jentel Beckaert. He ends 13th, but for, I think, a solid third, until maybe even half of a race, we thought, what is Jentel Beckaert doing? he is maybe going to get a surprise top 5. What is going on?
I started to question my knowledge because, to be honest, he was definitely not somebody that I was thinking of to be fighting for top 10. And he really got us in the first half, but eventually it was it was a bit too optimistic, I guess, the pace he was trying to follow, and then eventually struggled a little bit in the second half of the race. Was not really picked up by the broadcast until we finished then, and that basically that was kind of his race summarized in a way. I mean, he really looked good in the beginning half, the first half of the race, and then kind of just went off in a way. But I was really surprised to see him in the front in the first half, and that was in a way very funny, but also surprising. And you never know. Maybe this is a lesson from him now, and now he can maybe make sure that the next time that he's going to race, just take it a little bit easy in the first half, and then you can improve from the position that he is in right now, and maybe get some couple positions in front of him.
Yeah, definitely a case of a classic blow-up for him. I mean, he tried his best, and, well, it is what it is. Second performance I would like to highlight is the one of the rider directly behind him, Lucas van der Linde, second year under 23, riding for the Paulshauser Bingo team, ending 14th, which is a decent showing in my opinion. He's been racing already in Germany, where he got a third place at the race in Lutzelbach. Then he raced yesterday in Mechelen, where he got 11th and now 14th. Definitely a string of good results. Going to keep an eye out on him, because he was already beating, for instance, under 23 riders like Wart Huijps and Arne Baars, which are maybe not the biggest names, but still interesting to see how that moves forward. And I already mentioned it, the KleebergCross yesterday in Mechelen. I attended there. There were some riders who started their season there rather than today in Kruibeke. The win there went to Pim Ronhaar ahead of the Belgian Wietse Meeuwse, and the third place was for David Menu. Pim Ronhaar won that race pretty comfortably. I think that is definitely a name that we should keep an eye out on when he goes racing in Belgium against the big names, because yesterday, well, it did not look like he was in great form, but it also didn't look like he was trying. It was kind of like he pushed big, opened a gap of 20 seconds, consolidated that, and then after they faded behind him and he had 40 seconds and cruised towards victory. Expectations for Pim Ronhaar have already been set high by his team and himself. What do you make out of his win yesterday, Issam? The hype for him and just what's going to come for him?
In terms of hype, they kind of did it to themselves. I mean, Sven Nys was hyping him up already. He himself has a lot of confidence in his and has high expectations for this season in general. I think that yesterday was definitely a good step in the right direction. It looked good. He looks also, in my opinion, a bit stronger than last year. I don't know if you saw him in real life. So I don't know how it looked there, but on the videos he looked a bit stronger. It looked also like it was not a 100% effort in the end. So I'm very interested in his performances for the next coming weeks. I mean, that's going to be very interesting what he's able to do, if he's actually able to bridge kind of that gap to the elites in a very good manner and able to fight for top fives. I mean, we shouldn't put too much pressure on him, and it will come eventually, but it's definitely something to look forward to, and you never know, he can really surprise us.
Well, I don't think we are the ones putting pressure on him. If his team manager says he's putting out watts on training, which he should easily reach top 5, top 10 in the elites category, he himself gives an interview saying he's in the form of his life, never been this fit, able to fight for top 5s in the elite races consistently, then I don't think we are the ones putting on the pressure. Then I think it's fair to conclude that they are building an expectation level themselves, and that is then for Ronhaar himself to live up to that. This win, I don't know, I think it's very hard to judge. Of course, it's hard to compare between two races. Today was a lot muddier, for instance. I do know Ronhaar likes muddy courses, but on the other hand, yesterday it was not the best opposition there either. He beat Wietse Meeuwse, who is a under 23 rider, Okay, it's a talented under 23 rider. And the third place is then for David Menu. Menu today ended 13th, I think. But then again, you can't directly compare these races. Menu having a race in the legs yesterday, a bit of travel, other riders started completely fresh. So I think it will be interesting to see. But in my opinion, Haar should be able to at least come into the top 10 consistently in this early phase of the season. And it wouldn't surprise me if his teammate, David Haverdings, manages to snatch a top 10 as well, because yesterday he started way at the back of the grid. I think he was 25th or something when he passed me on the first lap, and eventually he just kept overtaking riders and then ends 4th. So it's already fair to conclude that he's made the step to the under 23 category pretty comfortably, because he was beating under 23 riders like Bart Huijps, like Leonard Belmans, also Lucas van der Linde, the rider I just mentioned. So definitely keeping an eye out on David Haverdings as well for the rest of the season. Alright then, let's move on to the women's race. The women's race today, in my opinion at least, not very entertaining. We had the fastest start for Marie Schreiber, the woman who already won 2 races in Germany last week. But she was quickly put back into her position by Fem van Empel, who took over the lead, put on the pressure on the rest, and was in the lead together with Annemarie Worst. Denise Betsema missed her start, also needed to get a bike change due to a shifting issue, and she was basically never in contention for the win again. It was between Van Empel and Worst, she was doing alright the first laps, but then she switched from the Grifo to the Reno tire thread, and she never really recovered from her second bike change. She got dropped there by taking a new bike, and from there on Van Empel just stretched the gap, and well, I don't think it was a matter of that bike change being the decisive factor, because eventually Van Empel led and increased her gap to 1 minute and 11 seconds. She took her first win of the season in her first race of the season ahead of Annemarie Worst, and in the background Denise Betsema ended third as well. Not the most entertaining race, but what impression did Fem van Empel make on you, Issam?
Very good impression, I guess. It seemed all so easy in a way, and that was definitely the impression that she gave me. She was in control the whole race. There was not really an issue. Worst was in front a little bit, then she was in front. She paced. The bike change of Worst played a role, but I guess a minor role. It was just, in a way, it was just a reason why it happened, and then the gap gradually just grew, and it seemed super easy for her. It was like there was no expression. I mean, we know that she has this kind of way of riding that it doesn't really seem that it is effortless in a way. But after the race, in her interview, she was also very honest about it, which I think was not really smart. But she said that it was kind of a training ride, that she was still very, very good, in a very good shape, very fresh, and it didn't really hurt her in any way or shape or form. So I guess it was visible and it looked very good. And I think if you look back at what we said in the preview, I think this is kind of showing what we were saying, that under 23, which is coming up, the gap, and the level they are bringing the women category to is showing today, and is going to be shown probably this season. It's still early, and I'm pretty sure that the Worst is going to be able to have some improvements over the season, and the others behind her as well. But I just think that the gap is going to be very visible this season, and I think that those under 23 are going to make it very difficult for some of the opponents they have.
Yeah, I'm a bit careful with making such big conclusions already based on one race. I still stand by what I said in the preview podcast. Van Empel and especially Pieterse, Van Anrooy to a lesser extent when she starts doing cross, will be able to bring up the fight for the wins week in, week out, at least for the podiums at the very least. And today Van Empel was already super strong. She made the same impression to me, just almost like without effort, just effortless there at the front, just in control. And then, these semi-passive-aggressive comments in the interview, I enjoy them, saying, oh, well, I recover quick, so I didn't need to go all out today. I'm almost as fresh as before the start. I came here as training race, and yeah, a bit nervous because I didn't know how the form would be. That's the same for all the riders, by the way. All the riders lining up here, it's very cliche, but it is almost like the first day back to school again. Everyone is wondering, how is my form? How has my off-season been? How have things been going? Will I be good enough? Has somebody found an extra gear? How did the others go through the summer? Oh, I know this rider had a strong season on the road, but does that mean they will be strong in cross? All question marks that will slowly be answered this week. And of course, today already Van Empel can conclude she's good. But for instance, a rider like Betsema, what will she be thinking? Third place, 1.5 minutes down on her teammate. What will Betsema be thinking this week?
That there is still a long season to go. I mean, Betsema is someone that we know that, I wouldn't say struggle in the beginning of the season, but sometimes, needs a couple of races to definitely get into some sort of a rhythm. And I don't think she's panicking in any way, shape, or form. She knows what she's capable of. I don't think there were big changes in her preparation in general, so she knows what is coming up, and I don't really think that she's panicking, and I don't think that the others are panicking, to be honest, but it's just, some things are just how they are, and it's early season. I definitely agree with you, but we can also take some conclusion out of this race, and it's definitely still too early to talk about the rest of the season, but I think, that it wouldn't be far-fetched if this was going to be a tendency, not the same gap, but in the same order in a way of what we're going to see in the next coming races.
It's fair to conclude that Van Empel is definitely in good form and to conclude that she will be up there, but Betsema, in my opinion, shouldn't worry too much. I would say that she struggles in the first race of the season. Yes, last year she was able to win the first race of the season in Lokeren, but she was on the back foot almost the entire race. The year before in Lokeren, she also ended 4th, and that was against, not the best opposition either. The year before, we can't really look at that because that was the year that she was suspended due to the doping issue, which she got cleared for. So it's not really fair to look at that race result, but in Zonnebeke she did end second, and the races after it went better immediately. So, hard to say how she deals in those first races, but she has a record of struggling in first races, at least in the last couple of seasons, and in my opinion that continues today. I've already said that the course is very difficult to be a first one for the season, so Betsema shouldn't worry too much. I think there's more in Betsema, but I do think that Betsema, out of the 3 big names that we've seen the past couple of seasons, so add Vorst and Brandt next to that she is the one that will struggle the most, because I do see Brandt and Vos having a bit of an extra fighter mentality, and also of course a better road program and all these things, because Betsema took a different road summer season, not many races, not on the road, just a bit on the mountain bike, spending a lot of time with the family, which is also important, because don't forget Denise Betsema is a mom of 2 children and combines that with being a professional athlete, so that definitely deserves some respect. So definitely good for her that she's able to combine these things, and if that then means not that much racing on the road in the summer, well, so be it. It's not only about road, it's also about mental well-being, and if you're not fresh in your mind, you won't be able to perform. And I think to some extent we've also seen that with Vorst in the past couple of seasons, because today, yes, Vorst eventually was a big gap down, but I did see signs of improvements for Annemarie Vorst over the summer.
Oh yeah, definitely something to build from, I guess. It looked in a way it looked okay. I mean, the second half of the race was a bit of the old Vorst in a way, struggling, and it didn't seem that easy in a way. It was a lot of pushing, a lot of trying, and it like from my eye, it didn't look that smooth. But definitely the beginning part of the race and how she went through that was way better, I guess, than some of the races she did last year. And I think in general, I think that she is on a level right now that you can build from, and that's probably the most important thing. I guess we don't know what program or what she expected from the start of the season. Yeah, maybe this is what they expected, and they're going to build from here. And there are many more months to come, and like I said, November, December are going to be important. January is important as well. So there's still so many goals ahead. So I don't think that there's any reason for panicking for Vorst, and it definitely looks in a way also a bit promising for the following season.
Let's run down the entire top 10 then. Of course, behind the all-Dutch podium of Fem van Empel, Annemarie Worst and Denise Betsema, we find the first non-Dutch rider, Sanne Cant, 4th place for the Belgian champion, ahead of Aniek van Alphen, Helene Clauzel and Marion Norbert-Riberolle. The final places in the top 10 are made up by Marie Schreiber, Kriona Krabbe and Laura Verdonschot. I would briefly like to talk about Sanne Cant. She extended her contract until March 2025 with Krelan Friestads, the new team name. What do you think of that decision to extend her contract for so long, and as well just her race in general?
I have to say I was a bit surprised of that contract extension till 25. I think that's relatively a long way to go, but she also kind of indicated that that is her goal to end her career in 2025, and she doesn't really look for any more years than that. So I guess she wants to show to everybody and give herself also that kind of settlement in a way that this is going to be the team where I will be ending my career, and I have this kind of stability right now that I know where I'm going to be ending my career, and I guess that helps. But like her performance today during the race was pretty good in my opinion. It looked okay. I was quite intrigued with the running as well in the last lap. That was quite a sprint that she had to make sure that Van Alphen was not going to overtake her for fourth. So yeah, I think she can be quite happy with the performance of today. It didn't look bad. It was okay, and a top 5 already. That's definitely something that you can take with you for the next following races.
I think there's been some improvement. I don't think we will ever see the best Sanne Cant anymore. The years that she wins many crosses at the top level, they are behind us. But I do think that she should be able to improve upon last year when, like, some of the results in the World Cup, it's just kind of sad. 24th in Zonhoven, 25th in Fayetteville, 19th in Waterloo, 13th in Hogerheide, 20th in Hulst. It's almost just painful, and that's not the farewell to a sport you wish anyone, and especially not a big champion like Sanne Cant, 3-time world champion, many time race winner, competing for wins since her 14th or 15th. So it's good to see her improving a bit and beating a rider like Aniek van Alphen, who was second on the KleebergCross yesterday. That's not bad. About that KleebergCross and Van Alphen was fighting for the win there with her teammate Inge van der Heijden. These two led the race, almost the entire race together. Didn't look like they were pushing each other hard, and eventually Van der Heijden had a bit of an extra attack in that final lap, able to take the win there. So I think it indicates something that Cant should be able to compete in the smaller races and hopefully end in the top 10, because some of the riders she beat today were names she was definitely behind last year. For instance, a rider like Clauzel, who is having a decent start. But somebody who I would like to talk about a bit more is Marion Norbert-Riberolle, the now Belgian, also riding for Krelan Friestads, made that transfer there, a 7th place. Also a decent result for another rider who's been struggling quite a bit the last couple of 2 seasons.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, last season was definitely, not something to write off to. It was a talent, a prospect that had the potential, but not really showcasing it in her results last year, and was a difficult season, I guess, for her. This season, when we were there at the team presentation of Krelan Friestads, she was quite clear about the preparation of this season, that she was able to, have a very decent road program, and that was something that she actually had never had done, and that helped her in a way for the preparation of this season. And she said that that's something that she wasn't really able to do in the last couple of years, and maybe that's going to show. I guess definitely in this race it was already better than most of her races last season in a way, and that is definitely positive, and then you can take that with you for the next coming races. I think that there is definitely some positives to build up from. I don't know how you look at it, but for me it's definitely some good signs for her.
I think it's a bit of a trend that you can see, because for instance Riberolle had a very decent ending towards the last season, getting a couple of top 5s, a couple of 4th places I recall. Annemarie Worst had the same. Last year, she of course had an okay season, a couple of podiums, bit of a tough middle part, then missed the World Championships with COVID, came back, took 2 wins, 3 second places, and I think another podium maybe, or at least a top 5 result. So I think it's kind of a thing that you see that some riders maybe have been struggling with COVID the past couple of years, and once that kind of got settled to the background, they could properly get back to training and focusing on that and really getting into it. And I think I've seen it with a couple of riders now that they were able to carry that tendance of a good ending of last year to a good start of this year. So that was definitely good to see. And for Riberolle, the potential is there to become a solid top 10 rider. I don't think that under 23 world title was highly representative, to be honest, because she was not the best under 23 rider that year. She was very lucky that the course turned into mud just the morning of the race. And of course, you still need to do it. You still need to win. And nothing takes away that world title. She deserved it. She's shown her talent on other occasions. She has been a lot better than the performances she put in today. That should be able to come back somehow, and I think that in Krelan she's in an environment that will be able to get that out of the rider, because if we look at the Krelan team, we also saw Kiona Krabbe, and 9th place today is also a significant improvement for her. And you already mentioned it, a new elan for the team. I think that's carrying through to the riders a bit, at least for now, that we can see improvements for almost all of their riders, and that is, in my opinion, a pretty good sign. Then outside of the top 10, there is one performance I would like to highlight. In 16th place, Shendy the Shoesitter. She rides for Paul Sauze. She is a first-year junior woman. Remember this name because this might be the leading woman of Belgian cyclocross in the upcoming years. She was already pretty good last year in the newcomers category and has, well, made the step to the junior category now. But that means racing with the elites, and that's a very big step, but she's taken it pretty well. She already won a couple of national races before. Not against the best opposition, of course, but still, national wins as a first-year junior. I take my hat off. I've never been able to do it. And then today here against the elites in a bit bigger race, 16th place. Also pretty decent in my opinion. I think this is a name we should remember because she might not be the biggest talent, but definitely one of the bigger Belgian talents. Well, that's then it for Kruibeke. Let's still touch a bit up on the USCX series. They had their first day of racing in Roanoke, Virginia, and we saw immediately there that Vincent Bastans, who was there last year, also went there this year. He took the win in quite an entertaining race in the men's side against Brunner. So that ended in a sprint of, I think, 500-600 meters, which Bastans pretty easily won over Brunner. Definitely an interesting race to watch. If you have an opportunity, go rewatch that last lap because it was pretty entertaining. On the women's side, well, bit of a surprise there. Magali Rochette, maybe expected by many to do very well, but she has been sick over the summer, got hit hard by COVID, struggled 17 days off the bike before she was able to start training again. Off fitness, said it will take a lot of time for her to come back and that she's not fit, but recovery over pride. So she's racing here to try and become better in the long term. She ended 5th, but probably a non-factor for the first couple of weeks. Hopefully we see her back in November. Caroline Mani took the win there eventually. Issam, do you have any names that stood out there? Maybe Eric Brunner, the American and Pan American champion. He looked to maybe have made a small step after a good last season.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it's for them. Yeah, it's difficult to say for me personally because I watched the race with one eye in a way, on and off. So I'm not really gonna be here saying names and stuff. But in my opinion, I think that Brunner definitely is going to be some of the American prospects that's going to show himself a little bit more this season. I hope that he's going to be able to do that at least and. The result of definitely showed that he's able to bring up the fight in a way. So I hope that is something that's not going to be a one-off and that he's going to be able to show that a little bit more with the elites.
Yeah, who knows? I hope he's able to come to Europe this year for a bit of racing. I think that there's a lot of potential in him and he could be one of the Americans that is actually able to get top 10s in World Cups. And that he is this year able to fight with Bastans on very much a Vincent Bastans course is already a very good sign. Well, that will conclude it for this episode of the Cyclocross Social podcast about the Exact Cross in Kruibeke. Issam, thank you for being here.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
We will be back next week. Then we'll discuss the second race of this series, the Exact Cross series, which is held in Beringen on the Benenmijn. See you guys then. Goodbye.